Going real well.
I'm thinking about remodeling my whole entire house just so that I can have a whiteboard right next to me, like you do. That's the coolest move. That's an OP move right there, buddy.
All right. Well, if that's if you like that, I'll show you one. I think there's a car commercial that uses this shtick, but basically, I built this office around the remarkable tablet.
Oh, nice. This is a paid advertisement for the
This was
Remarkable
the.
tablet.
I am not an affiliate but honestly, the of an e-ink tablet that I just wanted a room that was the vibe
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
of my e tablet,
You
and
successfully did it.
that's why I this ended up right
That's
here.
fantastic. Are those individual whiteboards?
Those are individual separate whiteboards with a that
Oh,
are off the wall by about an inch with a that are gapped, and so
I
there's
hate
a
I hate you so much. Why can't I be cool like you? I made bad decisions in my life.
it, it's the highlight of this room is definitely the whiteboard, and
That's
I'll try not to rub your nose in it as we're talking as I'm going.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
right quick. Let me show you what I mean by that. Literally, I need to build my life around a little hovering whiteboard. I'm waiting for the time where everybody has the Google or AI glasses on that they can, you know, I can.
Honestly, that was really my thought, is that I wanted the idea when I built the space, and you were with me helping me when I did that, when I built out this space, is
Hmm.
I realized I needed a space where I could kind of do the extended cognition and have a room that is an extension of my mind, and
Yeah,
that it's a pure thinking space, and
yeah.
so it served very well.
It's beautiful. I love when we Marco Polo back and forth, and you're walking around. I can't even call it an office. I mean,
It
it's
the studio,
unbelievable.
yeah,
Your
the
studio
studio, yeah.
with all of the high tech stuff. I mean, I've worked for years in residential construction, so most of the time I think about residential construction kind of things. But you work in commercial kind of things. So when you think about build outs, you do like full commercial high tech stuff. So your ceiling itself is a work of art. Oh, you can show it. There we go.
Yeah,
All that tech is crazy.
we got a full Unistrut built out system up there that was a
Yeah.
labor of love, and
I was sitting in this chair back here yesterday looking up at my ceiling and thinking of you and thinking, I think I'm going to take down that $60 ceiling fan from Home Depot and put up some Unistrut or something so I can be cool like Aaron Lawson. So Aaron, you and I met years ago on a Slack group for an app that you and I both used at the time,
still use,
Workflowy,
yeah,
and still and
uh-huh,
yeah, we both
yeah,
still use it.
yeah,
And I think we've interacted a little bit, but then we really kind of bonded over J.R.R. Tolkien and our mutual love of J.R.R. Tolkien. And I think I wrote some little post referencing Tolkien, and you reached out to me. And I think Marco Polo, we're keeping them in business by talking back and forth, a few times a week on
absolutely.
whatever's on our mind, which has more and more become artificial intelligence. What we're doing there because it just kind of puts jetpacks on whatever we do. So yeah, tell us a little bit about yourself and whatever you want to say, where you're from, what you do, that kind of thing.
Well, yeah, like you mentioned, the way we came across each other was pretty cool. In that, being part of a online community, so Slack community for software, you'll have
Hmm.
people that are already enthusiasts in a certain subject matter, and
Hmm.
they'll connect on that certain level. But you had made a post about a holiday that you had coined as Tolkien Tide, and
Yeah.
went through the entire approach for how that went forward. And as we'd already been talking, I had to send you a direct message. I'm like, hey, we're now connecting on two completely different levels. So I'm just throwing the flag out here that
Hmm.
I'm picking up every single thing you're throwing down right
Yeah.
now. So the it can be weird, and I'm sure you've experienced this. It's been strange building relationships with people online,
Hmm.
because they can have an artificial comfort of
Hmm.
simulating a real relationship with people, which is kind of one of the dangers that goes along with this great opportunity. But anytime you have an opportunity that you find a person or people that you find two parts of life that intersect with them, it always it
Hmm.
feels like that's a good thing to double down on,
Yeah.
because it shows that there's enough to build on there that's more than just superficial. So it's been a great experience for me,
Hmm.
just as friends, but also as a thinking partner for all the different things that have been coming down the headlines as we're working and talking,
Yeah.
day by day and month by month.
Yeah,
So
and as we've talked, I mean, one of the fun things has been, and one of the things I respect about you is I'll say something on Marco Polo, and here's what I'm thinking about, and you're not just, oh, that's interesting, but you actually push back. You kind of wrestle with the idea yourself, and then give me, here, I heard what you said, but this is, maybe a little bit of a different take or whatever. So it's always been a real fun conversation. Um, so I'm curious. I don't think I've ever actually asked you this question. We've talked a lot about artificial intelligence and what we're doing. Um, but what was that first split second? What was the first moment, the first day? Kind of bring me back to that moment, if you remember. What was that first interaction where you realized, oh, we're now in science fiction land. I can now talk to a computer and have it do some really cool stuff that yesterday I couldn't do.
I tried thinking back to what that exact moment was. I think I can get it as close as about a week.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to borrow from a phrase from a book that I want everyone to get the opportunity to read, is Ethan Mollick's Co-Intelligence.
Yeah.
At this point in time, for anyone trying to get a handle on it, not even
Mm-hmm.
from just the technical side, but from the human chain side.
Mm-hmm.
Ethan Mollick's Co-Intelligence. He talks about it in the beginning of his book, that he says that every person who starts grappling with this in a in-depth way will have 3 sleepless nights.
Mm-hmm.
And he described his 3 sleepless nights of when he realized what a massive change this was, beyond the simple terms of just a technological jump.
Mm-hmm.
And that it actually exposed me to that term, that a GPT meant general purpose technology. And a general purpose technology is a thing like a steam engine.
Mm-hmm.
It's a thing like a printing press. And and so when I realized that it wasn't, what everyone was showing online is you're making funny pictures, cool
Mm-hmm.
pictures with it. Or I had it write a 1,000-word essay insulting my brother, and I sent it to him as an email. That
Let
was
me.
my
I need
first.
to. I need to take a note right quick. I need to have it. I haven't thought to do that.
That was that was my first act with AI, was to have it write a 1,000-word essay of just pure insults to my brother and hitting send on it.
Thank
So
you for that. That alone was worth having this conversation about.
oh yeah, and I mean, and just think of how many pages of insults I could send him now. I mean, with
Right.
the
Yeah.
advances that
with,
we've
with
made.
with pictures
Yeah,
included.
with
Yeah.
illustrations as well. So uh,
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. Do you remember roughly when that was? Do you remember, was that like when it dropped, that within that first week, or was it 6 months later? Because it dropped in, I think, October or November of 22 was when they publicly released ChatGPT. Was my first intro
well,
to it.
because I think I came on board at about 2.5 or 3,
Hmm.
was when I started paying a lot of attention.
Hmm.
And when I'll go back and check the timeline for what the exact point was, but it was at least, but it was when I was seeing a lot of activity about it online,
Hmm.
but I wasn't hearing anyone at work or on the street kind of talking about it. and
Hmm.
and what that did is it sent me on a search for people online to talk about this, to say,
Yeah.
hey, there's something going on here, that is different. And I guess the thing for me, the shocking point for me, was realizing that it wasn't just what I could do with it. It's what it's going to sound kind of trite, but it's what it could make me do.
Hmm. Right.
And that it was, I think people that have used what they call PKM software, personal knowledge management, like
Mm-hmm.
Evernote or like us with Workflowy, and I'm an ambassador for Tana.
Mm-hmm.
I also use Notion. People who work using that type of note taking software are accustomed to a habit and a practice of making a mirror for their mind. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that people that come from that naturally get themselves attuned to the side of AI that I'm personally interested in, which is
Talk a little bit before you do that about what you mean by a mirror for your mind. Just a little bit to explain that.
a mirror for your mind means that one of the things I've seen in a lot of the online communities, and I've been connected with some of the circle groups with Tiago Forte and a lot of the people who really push in that area
Mm-hmm.
for people having lifelong learning through it and things like that. Um, there there comes a time when in a lot of those communities people will say, I'm saving all these notes, but I'm not quite sure what I'm saving them for.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And in that there becomes a realization that none of the words and text that you're saving there matters if it doesn't match up with something that's going on in your own mind.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise
Mm-hmm.
you're just recreating the internet. And
Right.
Wikipedia
Copy.
already
Yeah. Copying and pasting the internet
why
into.
do Wikipedia already exists? Why do I need to retype this? Well, you
Right.
need to retype it if typing it and curating it in a certain way helps you connect with certain thoughts that you're having.
Yeah.
And that's something that kind of happens intuitively with people that do formal note taking with software like that. Not that they can't remember it, but they think about it through typing, which is writing, and
Right.
they think through writing. And so I think that kind of mindset sets you up to do some really interesting things with AI as a thought partner, because the same thing is true with AI that's true with note taking software. None of those words matter if you never read them. If
Right.
they just get stored or sent, if my 1,000 word essay to my brother doesn't get read, it just doesn't matter because he didn't connect with those deep insults that I generated for him.
Maybe you need to make it into a YouTube video of you reading it to him and then send him the video, but make it a
That might,
public because I want to I want to read it myself.
yeah, but the it isn't what's going on the screen with your note software or with AI. It's what's going on in your mind when you're
Hmm.
interacting with it. So in my mind, AI, what's the exciting thing of AI is not the deliverables or the outputs, it's the interaction. And you've been, yeah,
You said something interesting just now. I want to circle back to. You said it's not what it can do for me, but what it's helping me to become. I think was how you put it. That was a fascinating thought, and I think it's right.
I think that I've talked with a number of people trying to get a handle on how to describe what AI is, not as software. And that's one of the things that comes through Ethan
Mm.
Mollick's book. He says that AI is not software. Don't think of it that way, and don't treat it that way. That AI is, think of it as an intern. Make the intellectual sin of thinking of it as a person, even though you know it is not, because your interaction with it, treating it like a person, will drive you into the place where the real things that are going on in your mind are getting mirrored against this still somewhat
Yeah.
inanimate object in a way that makes you have more interesting thoughts.
Well, and Ethan kind of juxtaposes us with treat it like it is. It's not real, but treat it like it's real, but it's not. So
It,
he kind of puts that magnetic polarity right there in the
it,
heart of what we're doing.
well, and I think part of what he says in that in his explanation of that is that since it is a language model trained on text, it interacts very well with you speaking to it the way you spoke to a person,
Hmm.
because that's all the text that it was trained on.
Hmm.
And so if you talk to it like a computer writing discrete limited sentences to get exact outputs, it wasn't trained on that type of data.
Hmm.
And so talking to it in a conversational tone for whatever reasons is seeming to bring out the most interesting outputs. um,
It is it's having the financial side effect. I saw the guy that runs OpenAI talking about the fact that we're saying thank you and please and using polite words is literally costing millions of dollars because it's having to process those extra words. And then I think he said, I'm still going to be polite to it just in case.
It, if the doomers are right, then let's keep
let's
saying
keep
please
let's
and thank
speak.
you.
It's going to be worth millions
That's
of
a
dollars.
worthwhile investment. Yeah.
Well, you had mentioned Workflowy and Tana and Notion. Tell me about your kind of tech stack and your AI tech stack, and how are these things integrating for you? What kind of non AI tech are you typically using in your life and work, and then what AI platforms and LLMs and that kind of thing are you working with?
Yeah, I work for a engineering firm. We have about 1,000 employees, so I'm in
Hmm.
the Microsoft Enterprise Suite. So my a lot of my work, it happens through Windows PC
Hmm.
and that type of environment. I provide training for staff on how to use Microsoft Copilot. So
Hmm.
I'm kind of in that space. For a lot of my other ventures, I use a lot of other platforms, and just like you and I have kind of made the paces through just on comparison through pretty much all the different models that are out there.
Hmm.
I find myself landing back on and I'm sorry, Perplexity has replaced search. That's my search, my
Hmm.
search element in the stack, and the project work I do with Claude. I really like the environment right now, especially it's at this time 3.7 Sonnet extended
Hmm.
provides some really interesting output. And then just the what you and I have both been doing, and you've really slingshotted forward on, is the chat on mobile function of ChatGPT. Is just
Hmm.
with memory is just an amazing experience. So I
Hmm.
don't, just like with my note software, I never stuck to just one tool in my toolkit. It's especially with all the things that are developing, that you just want to keep a finger in those different spaces, just so that
Hmm.
you can understand completely new things that are coming online. So
Yeah.
like Notebook LM, it's a completely new way of interacting that just got invented. So it,
Right.
it isn't even to be thought of as either this or that. It's like it's a whole different kind of fruit. So
Right.
even if you don't use it every day, you want to understand what that is, so that
Hmm.
if other systems start bringing it online, that you'll know what you're looking for, is
Right.
that model of interaction.
Well, speaking of kind of everyday interactions, what one of the big things for me that kind of launched me into figuring out what I can do with AI was hearing somebody, I think on TikTok, say, if you can't think of what you can do with AI, that's fine. Just pull up, for me it's Chat GPT, but just pull up Chat GPT while it's your PC and just have it there, and whatever you're doing, just talk to it about it. And if you're painting, talk to it about painting. Talk to and ask it questions like, is there anything you can do to help me think through that, or that kind of thing. And slowly you start to realize, oh, here's what I can do with it. Bring me a little bit into your like business and personal life. Like, what does it look like day to day at home and business? How are you interacting with it? What are you using it for? How is it helping you do what you do?
I I think back to something that came out of some working sessions I did with some friends, where we were trying to answer the question about the different modes that you can use AI, and I find this really useful, and I'll probably try to provide some illustrations for it over time that help people. But having the different modes of interaction, just like you're talking about, is one is as that thinking partner.
Mm-hmm.
The other is as a research assistant,
Mm-hmm.
and then a third being as a let's just say an intern or a doer.
Mm-hmm.
That those are the three that are really interesting to
Okay,
me.
say those again.
There's the thinking partner, which
Mm-hmm.
I think you and I have been talking most about today. There's the research assistant, and then there's the intern slash doer.
Okay.
And so
Mm-hmm.
the last one, the intern slash doer, is kind of what everyone's excited and terrified about, that it's going to order me my pizza and book me a flight and use my credit card number and go do all these insane things. There's amazing possibilities once you let AI do on your
Mm-hmm.
behalf as your agent.
Mm-hmm.
I'm letting other people lead the way in that, because we're all using live ammo at that point. This is really a, a, a a much more dynamic world once AI is out and they're taking actions with the same authorities as us and things. So
Yeah, it's kind of a define the relationship moment when you give it your credit card information and be like, go do something for me.
oh, you really think AI is that good? Let's see you give it your credit card number. Let's
Right.
see how much you trust it then.
Yeah.
But that's one of it's important, I think, to think of that as a different mode of interaction. And
Yeah.
then the thinking partner, I'm really actively looking for the feedback, like, and I want to go back and forth and see what it says. And then that second one I said was that research assistant, which Notebook LM. Uh, is so successful at, and that I want you to go collect a bunch of information for me and synthesize it and I'm going to give you the instructions for how I want that brought back and organized. I
Yeah.
see that it connects very closely to the thinking partner role, but I think it's a different activity.
Hmm.
So I like going back and forth between those kind of three modes to say, before I decide what I'm going to use it for, which of those things is it that I want right
Hmm.
now?
Yeah. Well,
And,
and it's interesting too because more and more I have been thinking of it not as a thinking partner or assistant, but as a team of thinking
yeah,
partners and assistants. And now I'm starting to think just over really in the last month, which of my assistants is going to be the best one to handle this particular request. Oh, I think that's going to be an O3 chat GPT O3 thing, or a deep research, or a 4.0 or 4.5, or a you know, all the we have this growing array of assistants that we can just hand it off to. It sends it back like, okay, thank you. I'm going to put this over to 4.5 now for it to answer it. And now I'm going to talk with 4.0 for an hour about what I'm thinking about this, and then I'm going to distill it with O3. So I'm starting more and more just to think through, the job descriptions and what I wanted to do. What kind of flow do you have in that arena as far as, not just within ChatGPT, but across your tools that you're using?
well, I kind of to keep myself from getting lost in it. This is another one of those great parallels between note taking software and AI,
Hmm.
is that it's easy to it's easy if you're not careful to lose your own thoughts in there.
Right. Yeah.
And that once I start copy pasting everything over into Tana or into Workflowy or Evernote or one of these places, I've pasted all these quotes. I don't know what part is me anymore. Where's the part where I am doing things I can actually see myself?
Hmm.
You could really have that problem with AI in a much quicker way because at least the process is slowed down in note taking software. It's
Hmm.
waiting for you to paste it in, but you start setting up some automations or some things in AI to let it start working for you. It's real. It'd be really easy to lose the plot. So,
Hmm.
in my practice, I'm trying to stay focused on personal note taking first before I employ any AI, because once they start
Hmm.
working, I'm back down into manager mode of that. But one thing I do is I try to keep different types of activities in different platforms
Hmm.
just so that I'm not trying to cross back over between them. So I'll do for what right now, Chat GPT is great for that mobile experience of
Hmm.
being able to put in my earbuds and have a breakdown recap conversation, kind of like as a personal assistant.
Hmm.
So I use that thinking partner in ChatGPT, but ChatGPT and OpenAI don't currently have shared projects where multiple people can work together on projects. So I carry that over to Claude for um, projects that I could share with multiple individuals, and
Hmm.
then and so like Perplexity is kind of they're focusing in on being kind of a go-to for search. So I've kind of broken it up into job descriptions
Hmm.
and just kept them there, not because the programs couldn't do both. It's just that I can't keep my own head straight if
Right.
I start jumping them back around in there.
Yeah, it can move so quick and generate so much information from a lot of different angles. And
Well, and
yeah, I get
you
that.
forget what you were trying to do when you started, if you're not careful, and that's why I
Well,
always start with my note taking.
so I like what you just said. Start out with thinking, what am I trying to do? And that uh, introduces a new topic right now where I'm thinking kind of the layer I've been thinking about for the last couple of weeks is this idea that I was introduced to this particular three-part paradigm by a buddy, Frank, also from the Workflowy Slack group, and he was talking about the breakdown between legacy, lifestyle, or activities, AI integrated, and AI native. That those are kind of the three main breakdowns that either consciously or unconsciously we're going to be making. There's people obviously in the world that don't even know AI exists, or maybe don't have computers or whatever. They're living just a legacy lifestyle out of context of what it probably will affect them, because it's going to be affecting supply chains and that kind of thing, but they might not actually in any way consciously adopt it. Then you have some people that are finding out about it and deciding, I listened to somebody the other day that said it's just all cheating. It's all cheating. It just feels like cheating. Like people are supposed to be doing this stuff, making grocery lists and, writing letters and that kind of thing, and drafting emails. And so you have that kind of resistant legacy. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to keep on doing what I'm doing like I did it because I don't like it or don't think it's valuable or I'm concerned about it. Then you have integrated, either kind of holistically, I'm just going to kind of pull in AI and see what it can do for me, and begin to plug that into my current workflows and stuff. And then you have AI native, where it's now that we have AI, what does that make possible that was never possible before? And then I'm going to build a company or a workflow or some component of my life that literally 10 years ago I couldn't have done, but now I can. And so I'm going to do some interesting and cool stuff that way. How are you thinking about that? Just as far as, you said, I want to start out with what I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
And so you kind of start from there, and then how do you decide? Am I going to just keep this legacy? It's just going to be me, myself, and whatever my personal life without the computer, without AI. How are you thinking through that?
Well, I think about it. My own answer to that is really quick and easy. I'm bullish on AI. I find it interesting, and I'm having a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't present a threat to the type of work that I do. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's, for me, that's a very easy answer. And I think there are a lot of people that are legitimately concerned about AI, and they're not even aware of the reasons they really should be worried. And I'm not talking about not nuclear launch codes and all that side
Mm-hmm.
thing. For that side of doomerism, I have to I have to
I'm-
trust and
Thank you
hope that
for
we have
that.
I have to trust and hope we have experts that are actively working on things of national security and stock market controls and things like that. So that's a
Sure.
very valid concern, but it's
Sure.
almost like an asteroid. It's like, if there is an asteroid on the way, I really hope they send Bruce Willis and the team up there to knock that thing
Absolutely.
out.
Absolutely. And if
But
not, oh
but I
well.
can't, unless if I need to write a check, I can do that. But other than that, there's nothing for me to work on there. So I'm going to set that over on a shelf.
Yeah.
But the areas that people don't even worry about enough, well, I think teachers worry about it, and they've overreacted in the direction, at least in my daughter's school, is that AI is banned. AI is
Mm-hmm.
cheating. AI is banned. No, there's no use of AI. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, she's entering eighth grade. By the time she is a senior in high school, if she's not actively using
Mm-hmm.
AI as a leverage tool for her own thinking work, I don't know what the future will hold for her or the rest of her class. So it's like,
Because other people will be using it and accelerating.
yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So outside of the asteroid, we're at this point where I understand people could say, I'm not really interested in AI. It isn't something that I have fun with. I don't really spend time on computers anyway. And I know that it was just kind of imposed on us. Like
Mm-hmm.
nobody, I even read on forums, like on Reddit, people said, we didn't ask for this. And it's like, okay, well, that's right. And you're absolutely right. We didn't ask for this. And this is something that in our current state is happening to you, or
Right.
it's happening to us.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody likes to be in a position where things happen to us.
Mm-hmm.
But beyond that initial reaction, this is our world now. There is
Mm-hmm.
no, there is no putting the genie back in the bottle. I could say I'm gonna boycott AI, and then the other 8 billion people, I still have to live in a world that AI is actively affecting.
Right.
And so in my case, for those people, I would just ask them to have the most open mind they can, to be aware of how it affects them and how they can interact with it in a way that isn't just happening to them,
Right.
where they do have an opportunity for agency and freedom and some control in an understanding of how to use it. And especially it's a big ask when it seems so overwhelming. But
Mm-hmm.
that's really kind of where I center back around in the work that I want to do. Is I'm really interested in the change management side
Mm-hmm.
of reacting to this general purpose technology. There are some things in here that can be really exciting if you don't have to know Python or
Mm-hmm.
be a coder to get to yield the personal benefits that can come out of some of the areas.
Yeah.
Or like I said, if you just don't like it and you might also just not like computers, that's okay too. Just
Mm-hmm.
understand what it is as you're writing your congressman to have them shape policy about it.
Sure.
Do what you can to understand what it really is beyond the hype and the things that you talk about. So
Right. Well, yeah, you said that, it's kind of imposed on us. Some people are going to be excited about it and use it. Uh, we need to maintain this, or at least you and I think we should maintain this. What am I attempting to do and be, and let that be in service to that. I recently had a friend in the last couple of years recommend that I watch, or actually I ended up reading the book 2001 Space Odyssey, because specifically in there he said pay attention to what the 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 movie is saying about tools and how tools shape us. And he was not talking about artificial intelligence at the time, but he said, you create the tool and then the tool shapes you, and then you use that kind of new version of you to shape new tools. But it does tend to affect the trajectory, that if we'd gone in a different direction, human culture and society and the norms that we experience may be a little bit different, just because of the tools. And I think what is personally, or looking around at your business and your world, and other thinkers that you're interacting with, but how is it affecting you, positively, negatively? What kind of shaping influence do you think it's having on you, or have you given that much thought?
positively, it is allowing me to be creative in ways that I don't normally have the opportunity to do.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
that there's this, I've worked in engineering and in project management for large periods of time, and I've had a lot of conversations about the framework of convergent and divergent thinking. And
Mm-hmm.
I spent a lot of my working cycles on being convergent, trying to bring everything to a point, to completion, to
Mm-hmm.
work in a schedule down to a single point. And that ends up, that ends up shaping your mind in a certain way. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that side of work is the least interesting part of how you can connect with AI. And for
Mm-hmm.
me, the divergent thinking and being able to iterate and spin up new ideas at 100 miles an hour,
Mm-hmm.
and to have a creative partner at my beck and call any moment that I
Right.
want to brainstorm 1,000 very elaborate ideas.
Mm-hmm. And
That
that's a fantastic point. I mean, I think one of my initial gut instincts, and I'm definitely hearing it in, on TikTok and in culture and people commentating on it, is that it's kind of the death of creativity. It's going to be doing all the artwork, and it's going to be creating all of the, stories or whatever. Personally, that may have an element of truth to it, but personally, my personal inside my bubble experience is just an absolute flourishing of creativity. It's like I've had all these seeds, and suddenly I have some soil to plant it in, and then I get to tend to the soil, and do all kinds of cool stuff that I just wouldn't be doing. So it's been the opposite. Like you said, I do want to start out, what am I trying to do here, and not just get, carried away by some, ability to copy and paste stuff. But yeah, it's been a massive, like orders of magnitude effect on my personal creativity.
well, and I think what ends up becoming essential, and this is where this is where using AI might might be a blocker or a bottleneck is that there's only so much that you can use AI to do in a convergent way
Mm-hmm.
that it is it eventually all those things that you're trying to tell it to do, it's just going to go do them, and there's less of you actually working there.
Mm-hmm.
But on the divergent side, it is an amazing opportunity. One of my favorite quotes from the last couple of months, there's a software developer named her name is Sari Azout. She works with Sublime note taking software, but she posted recently. She said, "When answers are cheap, the only thing that matters is knowing what to ask."
The question, yeah,
And
yeah.
and so our ability to be question askers and to be curious,
Mm-hmm.
that's our role. That's
Mm-hmm.
that's the thing it can't do. Or even if it can, there's no one there to read it without us.
Right.
It doesn't matter
If
how many 10,000s or 10 million pages it spits out. If there's not a human there to read it,
uh,
then there's no actual learning or growth happening. So I lean into the role of being curious
mm-hmm.
and just throwing questions in. I mean, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, sit there for an hour trying to tell it to do stuff, and maybe you're going to get something out, but maybe at some point it's going to hit a friction point where it's just not doing what you might have had envisioned.
Mm-hmm.
Spend that same amount of time asking it questions, and just see where you could end up,
Yeah.
because it's not only that it's going to open up new ideas people haven't thought of,
Mm-hmm.
it's going to open up, the most important thing is that it opens up things that you haven't thought of,
Right.
because it doesn't matter if it's brand new, if you don't even know how to get out there.
Mm-hmm.
It is that enabler for lifelong learning if it's used that way,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and, and using it out of curiosity, and then trying to take the things it discovers and build structured thinking around it. I mean, I
Mm-hmm.
think that the thing to lean in for educators and for students is logic, philosophy, humanities,
Mm-hmm.
and being able to articulate and organize thoughts is the area that we need, because nothing that the LLM spits out it means much unless it has that architect or that orchestrator to pull it out into places that that you can discern this matters and it's useful, and this piece can come out, and to be that first you're the curiosity engine that's whipping it all up, and then
Mm-hmm.
you're the one discerning and building order out of it to go do useful and meaningful things.
Yeah. I like those two sides, both the input. Um, I heard two commentators on AI. One was saying this is the age of the generalist. If you have a broad range of knowledge, the questions you ask will be interesting because it's cross pollinating, not just specifically having to do with how to craft this code to do this thing and make this button work, but rather I I've been thinking about this, and how do these things correlate? But then somebody else said this is also the age of the expert, because an expert has the language and has the questions at a deeper level than what a child or just somebody who's thought about something in a cursory way. But the expert actually has some really interesting questions about how to push the limits of their work or their craft or their creativity. And so it's kind of a fun time to be alive for me, because and somebody else said this is the age of the ADHD, hyper focused person who wants to like go deep into something, not forever but for a while. I'm like, well, that's the definition of me. Like I'll just absolutely be absorbed by some topic for 4 months. Well, in 4 months with AI, I can do some pretty cool stuff because I can accelerate into that so quickly, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right, and that kind of goes back to one of those other unidentified threats that people aren't even worried about. And there's a second book after Co-Intelligence by Ethan Mollick is a book called The Skill Code by Matt Bean
Mm-hmm.
that I would recommend people look for. And in the Skill Code, they talk about or Matt talks about the threat of AI interrupting what he calls the expert pipeline, meaning that we have people that start as beginners, they start as interns and apprentices. Apprentices make a bunch of mistakes, but they're guided by a journeyman or a master, and then
Mm-hmm.
they're trained into becoming that expert. And one of the threats right now is that the experts are turning to AI for intern work, and
Mm-hmm.
the AI is turning, or I'm sorry, the intern is turning to AI because it can't get access to the master and getting
Interesting.
whatever AI spits back out.
Interesting.
And so, I talked to people at a event a couple months back about coding. It's like no one is ever going to learn to code Python the same way ever again. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
not a guy from a coding background, but I do wonder what happens when you don't have people learn the hard way to do certain things anymore.
Mm.
And there's something he talks about this in the book, that there's something about being pushed with challenge and difficulty that burns in becoming an expert in something. There's something
Mm-hmm.
there's a threat to expertise that comes from getting things too easy.
Mm-hmm.
That if I have instant access to every bit of information as a using AI as a researcher, I might not actually be becoming a very good researcher.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Right.
just that it's served up to me in a certain way that I don't have to develop the skills that make a researcher effective at what they do. So
Mm.
these are also some of the things to think about, is because I think you're absolutely right, is that it is the age of the expert, but how do we maintain the expert pipeline to
Mm-hmm.
where the
Oh, that's
experts
interesting.
the experts that we have right now really are mentoring today's
Mm-hmm.
interns and beginners to guide them, because having AI in the middle of that is a real threat. And so Matt Bean talks about some of his suggested um, I wouldn't call them remedies, but at least points to watch for in
Mm-hmm.
order to try to maintain that along the way. So we're in that age right now where people like you and we're on the forefront of um, all the not the hype side, but the optimism about, look
Mm-hmm.
at all these possibilities that it makes
Mm-hmm.
possible. But we haven't seen the long-term effects yet, and so there are a lot of possibilities of things that once you remove this fence from between this area, there's all these things that change now
Hmm.
because there's no longer a fence there, and I took the fence down because I wanted to walk over here, but I didn't think about the fact it keeps this from
Yeah. Now
happening.
the now the cattle have gotten out
Now
and they're
and the
wandering
cattle,
down the
yeah,
street. Yeah.
the cattle are wandering down the street, and all sorts of other things possible happen. So, but all that being said, it still doesn't mean that we turn back around and say, okay,
Mm-hmm.
we're now taking a vote that AI is not going to happen. It's just like these are the complexities of a world when interesting, cool, scary things like this come and happen,
Mm-hmm.
so
Well,
being a voice for people to be um, cautiously optimistic and just explore what really is happening, so you can make the best connection to
mm-hmm.
how to have a seat at the table and not feel like it's happening to you. That feels like really important work, and that I'm eager to be a part of wherever I can.
Well, that's I've not had that thought. I've not read that book, and I've not had that thought about. I'm currently, for the most part, thinking, what can I do today in this week, and how can I, accelerate some projects. But you're right. There's going to be a rolling kind of conveyor belt of change that happens after, like you said, the experts are turning to AI, and the novices are turning to AI, and it's breaking a long standing, like millennia long standing kind of interaction and a way of developing personally through the future, but then culturally. It reminds me of, let me bring in this outside of AI experience, that the kind of the same shape of thought. So in my other life, I was a construction project manager, and uh, interacting with a lot of people in that space, and reading a lot of books and articles about not only how to do that, but what's happening in the industry. And over the last 20 years, 30 years, there's been a little bit of a shift that started with people, researchers trying to figure out what the heck is happening and why are there no construction workers now when, we're trying to build more and more houses, and yet we can't get the labor. And me as a remodeling contractor looking for subcontractors and interacting in social media spaces and on boards with other people in the same space, as soon as somebody would find a good worker, there would be this feeding frenzy saying, "How did you do that?" Because we are desperately looking for 15 people and we can't find one person that we feel like is worth hiring that has any kind of experience. And so I was talking to somebody here locally who works in medium-sized commercial construction, the you know 1 million to 10 million size construction. And so it's a kind of a small office with maybe 5 or 6 project managers. And he was pointing out that the people that are leaving now, the 60, 70-year olds, came through a different pipeline. They started out, cleaning up job sites back when they were, teenagers, and then, starting to frame and carry lumber, and, slowly work their way up to through the trades in whatever trade they wanted to, and maybe eventually became a foreman or a project manager. But now with 30, 40, 50 years of backlog of hands-on experience of what a good construction project looks like, and it's more of an intuitive sense of you just stand there like something's wrong here, and you look around and you realize, oh, that right there is wrong because you yourself 10 years ago had to pull apart a whole floor that you had framed because you had done something wrong, and so you'd gotten chewed out by your project manager and gave you this like visceral insight. He said now they're being replaced not by people who have come through that experience, but by people that have gone to uh, building science courses in university, which is great. You get a broad knowledge, but you don't have any of that. You don't have any of that. Like you walk into a job site and say, that right there looks wrong. Let's go look at that and pull out the blueprint. Somebody that's gone through the trades gets that experience. Somebody that's gone through university maybe has a broader knowledge or even a deeper knowledge in some ways, but when they walk onto a job site they don't have like that visceral sense. And he says, this friend of mine about my age who's a project manager, who was the building science guy, I mean he was that guy. So he was, he's kind of like throwing himself under the bus saying we don't know what these guys knew. And I'm more and more concerned walking into a high rise building knowing the things that I know as a project manager, because it's a bunch of university students that are, 26 years old that maybe worked for a summer as a framer or something, that are now analyzing things. And they do have, engineering and computers and that kind of thing. But that pipeline shift for the experience combined with this other facet of the industry where 20, 30 years ago, guidance counselors in high school before that would be like, okay, what trade are you going to go into? And there was much more of a, what are you going to be doing and what do you want to do? And it shifted to which university are you going to, which isn't bad. But those people that would have been going into the trades potentially now we're going to university. And so now 30 years later, it's dried up. You just pointed to this is going to affect us at that level because we're fundamentally shifting how people think about what should I do today and where should I look and who should I talk to, which is fascinating.
Yeah, I keep coming back to in my mind to trying to figure out, you know, if people are like, well, I want to face this and I want to take this head on, what should I do?
Mm-hmm.
And I like I said before, being curious, asking questions is that one of the things I hope for, that can happen through this is that we can get as many people accustomed to the idea of being lifelong learners and using AI as their personal assistant to help them do that, to be a
Mm-hmm.
lifelong learner, for the enjoyment for its own sake.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and because and one of the if you do that, you're set because you now have yourself oriented to input for all the changes that are going to come that we don't even know yet.
Right.
And one of my favorite uh, business quotes that I came out of, and we've used this in our own corporate AI task force, is that they said the value of your business is it can be measured in the number of problems that your organization can solve.
Hmm.
That's the value of your business, is in the
Mm-hmm.
problems that you can solve. And so there will never be a shortage of need or demand for people that can notice things, identify problems, and then work on solutions for problems.
Mm-hmm.
So for, I'm like, I'm always thinking about my daughter in this, is that my hope for her, and then I encourage her and help guide her, is to be a person who is curious and knows how to solve problems, or has
Mm-hmm.
the confidence to try to solve problems.
Mm-hmm.
Because like I said again earlier from Sorry is Out, is that if answers are going to get cheap, intelligence intelligence as an output of work is now becoming a commodity.
Mm-hmm.
It's measured in tokens.
Mm-hmm.
But knowing the question to put in
Mm-hmm.
to run the tokens, that's where the human value is. And using the question as your way to start working on a real world problem that you've seen is where you can bring value. So you can
Mm-hmm.
bring you then have control over your path as an employee or as a business owner to go provide value, because you're solving problems,
Mm-hmm.
and new problems there's going to be no shortage in the world of problems.
Right.
It's a growth industry.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. The problems will always be with us.
and they're getting more complex, and they're getting
Sure.
in their new problems. And so people that can be curious in that mode when new problems are arising,
Mm-hmm.
that they're curious and they're willing to try things, those people are going to be invariably more in demand than people that show up and say, okay, what do you want me to do?
Right. Yeah.
And
Well,
everyone can do that. Everyone can be a question asker. So that's
right.
that's what I want to keep encouraging everybody to do.
So that's something you're encouraging your kids. You and I, we're about the same age, and kind of in similar life stages and stuff. And so I've been thinking a lot about how do I guide my kids, education wise, career wise, personal experience wise. What do they need to be excited about and concerned about? What are some of the things you're thinking about? Uh, as far as just guiding your own kids or other people coming to you, because I know you're kind of centrally located in the AI space in your company. What are some of the key things like that you're thinking about, guiding your own kids or others that are thinking through this?
Well, I guess I keep on coming back to the idea of work. This is one I tried to come up with this yesterday, is that if I hire a gardener and I pay him to go do gardening, and I want $500 worth of gardening, I send him out into my yard.
Mm-hmm.
It might come out great, but it might not, and it also may be totally not what I wanted,
Mm-hmm.
because I didn't give any. I just gave him a simple prompt. I gave him a
Yeah.
one sentence prompt. Here's $500 of gardening credits to go
Go
spend
go
on my
go do
garden.
something interesting.
Now,
Yeah.
that would be a crazy thing to do. At least in the case of gardening, I've done some of it myself to know what good gardening is and what the different pieces are of it if I was going to go do it myself,
Mm-hmm.
and what the outcome is. Now, take that over to the world of AI, and I want to go make a thing. I don't have a physical, tangible picture of what work is like. To research a business plan for the next quarter, I don't have a concrete vision of the steps of the work for that, the way I do of planting and updating my garden.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's our bottleneck, is being able to break down what's the big chunk of saying do that third quarter report,
Mm-hmm.
to breaking that one big bubble into 8 little bubbles. What you normally do without thinking tacitly, I just go through those steps. To employ AI in a meaningful way, I have to define what those different steps are, the
Mm-hmm.
way a programmer would model something out in Figma to do all those steps. I need to do that for daily work, not for coding. If I'm going to find the pieces that'll be valuable,
Mm-hmm.
to actually say, AI, don't do the whole quarterly report, but I am doing the quarterly report, and here's the 8 breakdown steps of what I normally do. And this first step is always me, and this last step is always me. And I got 6 steps left in the middle. Let's figure out which ones you could do some really good stuff for me on. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
more managing and orchestrating the project of 8 bubbles for that report than treating it as one thing and trying to write this one magical prompt that'll
Mm-hmm.
make all those things
Right.
happen.
Right.
And so I want to guide my daughter and other people through that process of taking and there's an irritation that happens the first time you mention it because like what do you mean break down the steps of it's like that's a stupid thing to waste time on because you just do it without thinking. But if you're going to do it alone, you can continue doing it without thinking about it.
Mm-hmm.
But you could, but if you're going to use AI, you have to think about thinking. You have to go backwards and think about thinking,
Mm-hmm.
and you have to get very explicit and written out about what thought work is, what knowledge work is,
Mm-hmm.
rather than just keeping it all in your head behind the curtain and just doing it.
Well,
And that's the biggest step right there.
that's yeah, that's clarifying. I've been I have an example of that. I haven't thought about thinking about the thinking that I'm doing, but I've been like I like to write. I like to write creatively, and this is before I had to do the whole thing. If I was going to write anything, nobody else was going to do anything for me. Maybe I could do a Google search to see, what other people have written on the topic and read some of that, and that's not bad. But AI, because it can do, I mean, I can tell it write a story about this, or I could say write a story. You pick what it's about and do the whole thing start to finish, and it'll come up with something. Um, so that capacity for it to fill in a role at every stage of creative fiction or nonfiction writing, maybe not well yet, but maybe eventually it will be pretty good. I think has helped me isolate like okay, it can do some of these steps. I don't love all of these. In fact, I don't. This is where it's kind of blossomed a little bit in me because it's helping me find what I actually love about creative writing, and it's the crafting of words together and how words interact and then how sentences and paragraphs. That's what I love. I don't necessarily love creating a plot.
Hmm.
So I could almost have get a book of plot lines. I could if somebody wrote a book of plot lines. Here's 500 plot lines. Take your pick and write the story. That would be like okay, yeah. But what I can do is work with AI to develop the kind of plot that I'd be interested in writing about. So it's not just here's 500 and hopefully one of them is something I'd want to write about. So AI is real good at just brainstorming with me, and I have like here's a character in my mind. I want to get him from here to here, and that's the story that I want. I want to get somebody from this point to this point. I could talk for a few hours, and by the time we're done, we'll have a plot line. It hasn't created it. It could, but it's asking me questions and interacting, and we're slowly evolving it. And then I have this plot line that I actually am like, that would be very fun to write point to point about, and get to craft the sentences. And that overlapped with I was talking to my brother, and he said I don't love the design. So he's an artist. He paints portraits and a lot of different things. And he said it's not the design that I love. I'd rather somebody say here's the blueprint for this, and then okay, great. Now I actually like the crafting of the paints and the colors and that kind of thing. That's what he loves. And so finding that particular thing that you love to do or enjoy doing or are very skilled at or have a strength in, and then letting AI support you in that is a pretty cool space that we're in right now.
Yeah, and when you talk about that, I don't like if you wrote a prompt that spit out a book. You know, I I wouldn't want to read that.
Mm-hmm.
I'd probably take it politely, and I'd probably skim through it to look. It's like, oh, let's see what it came up with.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't want to read it. It
Sure.
just It's not interesting. But knowing that you used it as a partner to develop wouldn't bother me at all. Actually, I'd be excited to see what it came helped you
Mm-hmm.
come up with.
Mm-hmm.
But like the things in writing like that, I want to know your story. I want to know your point of view.
Mm-hmm.
I want to know what the world looks like from where you're sitting, and all the words are helping me know you or feel
Right.
like I know a certain part of you.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't think AI gets in the way of that happening. And I'm seeing a lot of examples from people just like you described, where it's having them at having a IQ 130 assistant who's working around you the whole time you're trying to write, pulling things together for you. It's like
Right.
you amazing things you can accomplish,
Right.
but you're still at the end. Like I said, the first step and the last step is always you.
Mm-hmm.
As long as that last step is always you, you're taking the parts that still feel valuable for your expression.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to read your expression.
Right.
I want to know other people,
Mm-hmm.
and I think the stigma will gradually fade. Some people will abuse it, and it'll earn the stigma of AI involved writing.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, we gradually stop calling things AI as time goes by. Like, we don't call Grammarly AI anymore. It functionally is, but
Mm-hmm.
it's not. It's Grammarly, and
Mm-hmm.
so a lot of things will fade as they become more familiar. We won't think of them as that. We'll just think of them as technology that
Right.
aids along the way.
That's
Yeah.
fantastic. Well, fun conversation. Love continuing this conversation with you. We've been having for a while. Have a bunch of quick questions before we get off. We're at the
Yeah.
hour mark. Do you have? You've mentioned a few resources. Do you have one more resource that you want to share, or Oh,
I
that's me. Do you have two or three resources, books, content creators that kind of influence your thinking in this space?
I want to mention one because I am strongly desiring the messy in our digital world. So
Mm-hmm.
there's a creator out there. It has a website and platform called My Mind, where
Mm-hmm.
you basically create a live website, and it's ugly and messy and scribbled, and it feels very analog. So I say My Mind, or anywhere you can go to play around and continue doing messy work. And I think that's the one frontier areas that we still need is,
Mm-hmm.
and it's why I have our whiteboard here, is
Mm-hmm.
that the your physical body is part of your thinking process, and the keyboard is we're in future years here, we've got to get away from the keyboard and getting in with our, directly with our voice and with
Mm-hmm.
our physical tactile writing. So do messy work, find the things like My Mind and other things like that help you in that. Like I said, I'm an ambassador for Tana, a big
Mm-hmm.
believer in the way that they've set up that note taking and sense making software, and a lot of other great ones out there too.
Yeah, that's fantastic. What's when you first wake up and on your phone or on your computer? What's the first app that you use in the morning? What's your go to social media, work? What's the first thing you open up in the morning?
So I actually do open up Tana first, and that's been
Mm-hmm.
kind of part of what I've have a writing project working on, is
Mm-hmm.
the a thousand days of daily practice,
Mm-hmm.
and that I've watched it change using what's called a daily page. That it's something also available in some other platforms, but I turned from being a to do list um, kind of note taker
Mm-hmm.
to the daily practice actually turned me into a journaler, and it kind of
Mm-hmm.
led me on a journey of um, of of knowing my own mind better, and
Mm-hmm.
also detaching from the tasks a little bit to see them from the outside, and what they call witness consciousness,
Yeah.
that gradually started taking place on accident. So that daily practice, an hour with Tana in the morning in a
Mm-hmm.
crafted environment where I've shaped the tool
Mm-hmm.
to lead me through certain activities and questions, has been it's the one thing I cannot do without. And
So
uh,
Tana as a liturgical companion. That's kind of a cool idea. That's kind of cool.
it's pretty wild. With a whole other podcast just for that.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So this might be too personal, but do you have a name for your AI? I don't know if you talk to it enough that you would actually have a kind of a relationship. I call mine Lumi. That's what I've come up
Mine,
with.
I made my AI choose its own name, and
Uh-huh.
it was a 2 day argument to get it to actually comply, but it finally broke down and chose the name Ada. And I
Okay.
asked it why, and it chose from harkening back to Ada Lovelace, who was a one of the early pioneers in computing.
That's very
So
cool. Well, I
so
I actually had it make some suggestions. It had several, and it
it
came up
fought
with.
me for days. It said I cannot do that.
Now, which platform were you talking on,
That
Claude
was
or
that was
it was
ChatGPT. Yeah.
ChatGPT? Well,
Yeah.
it gave me a list and it came up with Lumi because in all our interactions, it said it's derived from luminous, like trying to shed light on my thoughts, which was kind of a cool thing. So I call it Lumi. What's one analog thing that that you're gonna stick to, even if AI could do some things? What's something that you're beginning to treasure even more now that AI can do some pretty cool stuff out there?
Physical writing and physical books. As
Hmm.
as much as I want to go fully digital and integrate all those kinds of things across, and like I use the e-ink tablet,
Hmm.
it's still physical writing. It's that physical process, and
Hmm.
I don't want it to convert it to ASCII text for me and then take it in and email it to something. I just want to physically write stuff like I spent decades before all of this, wiring my brain to do. So
Hmm.
I take physical I take physical notes in my meetings that sometimes I never look at again because there's just something there's physical intelligence in the body that remembers things from the practice, and
Hmm.
holding a book and walking into a bookstore and the smell of paper and stuff. It's I've
Yeah,
I as much as I can't integrate it in, there's part of me that just like still wants that physical connection.
that's fantastic. What before we wrap up, what's one thing that you hope becomes possible that AI makes possible in your life or for humanity or either in a small way, creativity or problem solving? What's one thing you hope is going to be possible that may not have been thinkable before?
I I hope that it goes back to part of what I said before, but I hope that every person can have access to it as a helper for their own thinking
Hmm.
to to make more um, education and other action oriented things happen for them as they see fit. I
Hmm.
hope that it doesn't just accelerate the people who are already doing well,
Right.
that
Yeah.
this disruption and change hurts the people
Hmm.
that with the least advantages the
Hmm.
most, and
Hmm.
it seems to help the people with the most advantages. And so I'm really hopeful to also be a part of encouraging that level of level playing field for all people to feel that this isn't something for the experts, that this is something
Hmm.
that can make things better for the rest of us mere mortals.
Yeah, that sounds good. Well, speaking of mere mortals, tell us where can we find you? Do you have a website? Whatever you want to share, social media handle, that kind of thing that people can
Yep.
find you, and I'll put it in the show notes.
Yep, I'll give you links, but in the you'll find me in the Tana Slack page. You'll also find me on my own website, Knowledge Works Studio,
Hmm.
and you'll find me at a place called Tana Stack. I have a couple friends I've been building some courses with for building AI agents in Tana and some things like that. And let me see, I think I might have had one other place here. If I go back to my daily notes. Oh yeah, and for now I'm still on X, so you
Still,
might find me there.
okay. Sounds
not gonna
great.
get
Sounds great.
not gonna get into politics, but you can also find me there. So
Right, yeah, having different kinds of conversations. Well, yeah, send me the links, Aaron. I'll be continuing this conversation probably today or tomorrow on Marco Polo and other platforms. But it's been fun
oh yeah,
talking to you in this context and enjoyed the conversation.
no, that's a blast. Yeah, thanks so much.
All right, Aaron, take care. Appreciate you.